Well, good morning, America, fellow patriots. It's good to see all of you. This morning, I want to talk to you a little bit about meanness. I know that may sound a little funny in the current situation, but stay with me for a second. Meanness, cruelty, evil is being passed around quite a bit. By both sides, I'll just be fair and say that. But from our perspective as conservatives, as many of us Christians, and for those of you sitting out there saying, I've seen some of the stuff you write, I've heard some of the things you said, you don't sound like any church person I ever met. Thank you. I'm glad. There's a whole big difference between being a blood-bought, adopted son or daughter of God and some butter won't melt in my mouth churchite. I have no interest in the latter. Spent too many years among them. But that's another story for another day. This morning, like I said, I want to talk to you about meanness. We, as conservatives, fiscal and government-wise, are being called evil. We are actually on the watch groups. The, what is that woman? Anyway, Big Sis she's called. Yes, I know her name. I'm not going to say it. Not going to give her the gratification. She has us, if we're white, if we are conservative, if we are for limited government, if we are for the foundational principles and documents and history of this republic, we are, and she is right. Now hear me out. She is right that we are the enemies of this current state of affairs. And I'm thankful. I wrote in my Facebook the other day that when it becomes against the law to be a Constitution-abiding, liberty-loving American citizen, I will gladly, cheerfully join my forefathers and be a horrifyingly effective outlaw. Well, that's not a brash, egotistical man-type brag. That's a bone-deep conviction. That's a fact. As no good man has anything to fear from me, and of course the age I'm getting and the things that are happening to my body, I don't know that anyone's got anything to fear from me. But I'll tell you this much. No good man has a thing to fear from me. No evil man has anything to gain by bringing trouble upon me. No brag, just fact. But back to this thing of meanness. What I'd like to do is to share with you just a little bit. And yes, I guess this could be a little bit of marketing, but if it weren't true, I wouldn't do it. If what I'm fixing to say and read out of here wasn't true, well, it wouldn't do me any good to try to market it. This is a book that I wrote. It's called The Doorway Buck. What's it about, Mr. Sackett? Well, basically, it's about the results of divorce, about the results of meanness, if you will. As I say in this, not every boy has a dad. Every boy needs a doorway. In the course of the book, the young man, Travis Martin, who is 18, just turned 18, has grown up without a father. And of course, the other side of affairs has spoken of how evil he was, how mean he was, how dangerous, how crazy he was, and how little he cared for the boy. That's not always true. I know it from experience. But he's fortunate. He runs into a gentleman named Tuck Arnold, who serves as a mentor. And in the course of the book, there is a section. Oh, you find out that Tuck knows his father, but I'm not going to give too much of the story away. There's a section where Travis asks him at one time. See, his father never came around much. He did in the early days. He tried to make contact. He tried to send money. He tried to send birthday gifts and Christmas gifts. They never made it to Travis. And since the woman who gave him birth was surrounded by family that happened to include judiciaries and law enforcement, and since they were more concerned about keeping control than they were about loving the boy, there was no way for the father to get to him without hurting or killing some of that crew. So, Tuck has just explained that to Travis, and he says the following. There was just no way to get to you without running into some part of that pack, and that would have led to a killing. So he is a mean man. The words I'd heard hissed so often by so many in the family came to my lips. They came from my training, but not from my heart. But even as I said them, I wondered, and I do believe that that was the first time I'd ever seen the old man truly stunned. Mean? Mean? He shook his head in disbelief. Travis, next to Mr. Parks down at the DX station, your father is, without a doubt, one of the kindest and gentlest men I've ever known. No, don't get me wrong. He's got a backbone. It's bear wide and wolf tough. And he has got no nonsense determined sense of right and wrong. But those part of a good man's nature just naturally terrify the uselessly bold and the gutless. But mean? Travis, that's a matter of intent and lack of character, not necessarily observable actions. Sir? Tuck sighed slightly, pursed his lips, and looked around the room like he was searching for something. And then he leaned forward and with a softer tone laid out something that I had sensed about the world instinctively, but I'd never heard it put into words. Travis, in the act of defending his home and his family, and in the course of war, many a good man determines and does many a hard thing, without malice or evil intent. They do these things, son, because the wicked, who without cause bring harm to the innocent, in their relentless, bold glee to cause that suffering, make such strong actions necessary. Does that make a man mean? No, sir. Tuck glanced into some unseen distance for a moment, like I'd seen him do so many times before. And then, with a soft sadness framing his face, he continued. And here's the flip side of that, Travis. Much of the true evil of mean folk slides between the ribs and on into the heart by means of by them doing absolutely nothing. When mean people have a chance to tell a truth that would bring freedom, to stand up and give testimony, or a warning that would turn the tide, and with a bland, blinking look of total innocence, they stand by and do nothing. His eyes narrowed then, but I could see the flame burning hot and bright within them. That, my boy, is the beastly heart of mean. Fellow citizens, what do you know? What have you known in your bones for years? Yes, before the current occupant of our house came in. But in the last 2.5 years, what do you know? What have you sensed? What have you learned? What are you doing about it? The beastly heart of mean is in the doing of nothing. Now, that's probably a long-winded way of saying the truth that was spoken so eloquently and simply when it says, for evil men to conquer, the only thing that is required is for good men to stand by and do nothing. I contend that there are no such thing as good men that stand by and do nothing. I contend that there are men and there are situations, and women, There are men in situations that it is time to wait. It is time to be still. It is time to perceive the moment and seize the right moment and do the right thing. But there is never a time to stand by and do nothing as evil marches forward, growing more and more bold by the minute and more revealing of itself and its bone-deep black hatred, black being the soul, not the God-given tan level. Its hatred of all that is good and right, of all that made America good and right in its beginning. Coaches in Tennessee being told by school boards not to lower their head as some student says a prayer. God, I hope they bow their head. If there is no price to pay for liberty now, then there is no right to claim it now. President Reagan was right. We are never more than one generation away from losing our liberty. It must be earned by every single generation and by every single recipient and enjoyer of it. I am not a militiaman. I am not calling for armed insurrection. I am an American citizen, and I have every intention to live and die a patriot. I am quietly, calmly preparing. What are you doing? What do you have? Well, I've got some food, and more than anything else, I have a growing list and depth of skill sets. As I said, my body's breaking down. No complaints whatsoever, and that's not a backhanded plea for sympathy or prayers or support, although if you want to pray for me, that's fine. It's just a fact. But I have learned this from God's Word and from life. We are never born and we never live in the wrong time. I remember as a kid, I would listen to men say, "Oh, I was born 100 years too late," because they thought they ought to have been some kind of six-gun slinger riding his horse into town and winning every poker game and every gunfight. The men who lived in those periods and those times and those events were men or not, based on their character, not on the time that they were born. And we will be the sons and daughters of our forefathers, of liberty, because of our character, not because of the right period of time to be born. We were born in the right time. This is our time. The only thing we have to decide is, what are we going to do with it? Can't get it to light. I, for one, have no intention of being a part of the beastly heart of mean. I have no intention of standing by and doing nothing. There are women standing up and being more bold and speaking more truth, more frankly, than most men out there, gentlemen. I speak with the style and the form that my personality and background bring out. I will not be what I am not. But by God's grace and by God, I will be all that I am and was meant to be. I'm C.M. Sackett, and that's how I see it.